Hi, and welcome to Access Chat. I'm really delighted today. We've got a double helping of guests. We've got Jeff King and Donna from Enterprise Holdings. Now, Enterprise Holdings covers Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Budget, a number of other enterprises as well. Can I get Enterprise in one more time? At Enterprise, that will be your Twitter handle. And basically, you've come on because I twisted your arm a little bit, because we were talking at the Business Disability Forum about something you're involved in, which is the click-away pound. So welcome, Jeff, and welcome, Donna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about what got you involved in the BDF, and then involved in your journey into getting involved in the click-away pound stuff?
Sure, I'll get us started. My name is Jeff King. I've been with Enterprise for 23 years, most of that on the IT side. Currently, I head up IT for our European operations. And when I came over to the UK 3 years ago, Donna actually got me involved in our diversity streams, and disability was one that I chose to be a champion of. So within our company, we have different, the corporate officers all have different streams of diversity that they become champions for. And so Donna and I both oversee disability along with a couple other people. And so she introduced me to the Business Disability Forum, and I was quite intrigued, mainly because it was so business focused, and so it just was a good way, I thought, to promote businesses to do the right thing. So from there, I got hooked up with the Technology Task Force, where, Neil, I met you, and have been able to learn a lot from the task force and technology, and then that led us to the Click Order, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more detail as we move forward.
Yeah, thank you. And Donna?
Great. I'm Donna Miller, and I've been with Enterprise for 25 years. Started as a management trainee and then moved into HR, and have worked around the world, worked with our operations in North America, both on the United States side as well as Canada, and then have been working with Europe since probably about 2000, and moved to the UK in 2003. Like Jeff, I work with our groups across Europe. We have offices, corporate-owned places in the UK, Ireland, Germany, France, and Spain. And fairly recently, we began franchising the Enterprise brand across Western Europe, which is the first time that we franchised our brand, which is pretty exciting. So working on a lot of initiatives with that. But as Jeff mentioned, we're all very involved in diversity efforts from a director standpoint. So I work on specifically with disability, with sexual orientation, and also with social mobility are the three areas that I focus on. So I've had the opportunity to work with Jeff and three other directors focusing on disability, looking at it from all sides, from a customer standpoint, from an employee standpoint. And it's been a lot of fun to work on that, and done a lot of work through the Business Disability Forum, and had some great support from the team there on getting us going on our journey. So it's been great.
Fantastic, and I'm a big fan of the BDF as well. I think that it is the best vehicle we have within the UK to really bring large organizations together to talk about these topics in the open, and to talk about them in a pragmatic way, and that enables us to take stuff forwards. How big is Enterprise? I know you're a big company, and you've been around for a while. How many employees do you have?
We have 93,000 across the world, and been in business since 1957. We have branch operations all over the world as well. I'm going to do one slight correction, because in your introduction you mentioned budget, and we're actually, Enterprise owns Enterprise, Alamo, Rent-A-Car, and National Car Hire.
Ooh.
So that's all right.
Sorry.
We'll correct you. That's perfectly fine. So very, very large car hire company. We are the largest car hire company in the world. And today we had really great news. We've had a big promotion at Enterprise. Chrissy Taylor, who is the granddaughter of our founder, Jack Taylor, who's been in the business now for 16 years. She was just promoted our Chief Operating Officer. And so that's great news. And Chrissy started her career, as we all did, in the management training program. So since we have a philosophy of promoting strictly from within, Chrissy started just like her dad did and her granddad did, as right on the shop floor, and she was promoted today. So it's really exciting to see our third generation of our family, the family business, continuing to move up within the company. So that's great news for us today.
Oh, fantastic. I know Deborah's got a question, so I'll hand over to Deborah.
Well, that's really cool, Donna, what you were just saying. That wasn't my question, but I think it's very cool that Enterprise focuses on, internal candidates. It has management programs and builds, from within. And you've been there 25 years. Jeffrey's been there 23 years. Those are pretty impressive. We don't really see that in corporations. So congratulations. And I have been a customer for many years with a lot of them that you mentioned. Enterprise is usually the first one, but National and Alamo. So as a customer, y'all have done a good job. But
great.
Yeah, so I've made the mistake of actually going with some of your competitors and I've been disappointed. It's like,
well,
okay.
We're happy to welcome you back at any time.
Yeah, no, I'm with you now. I'm always with you guys now. I only made that mistake a couple of times. But the question I have is, and first of all, we're very excited at Access Chat to be speaking to you since you're a corporation. We've spoken to a lot of different leaders. We've talked to leaders that are people with disabilities. We have talked to nonprofits. BBC was on, but it's always exciting to us to be talking about corporations that are making a difference for this community. So the question I have for both of you, Donna and Jeffrey, is it's not unusual for diversity, inclusion to have the different tracks, since diversity means, it's a lot of different things, LGBT, women, and disabilities. And we see often in the work that we're all doing that some large corporations forget that disability is part of that. So we applaud you for that, first of all. But I'm curious why both you and Jeffrey, if y'all could just speak a little bit of why did you, when you were as an executive deciding which part of diversity was interesting to you, why did you select disabilities?
I'll kick it off. So for me, it was partly because when I looked at all of the different tracks of diversity, disability really touches all the others. So that was part of it, is that I think it's anybody. It doesn't matter your gender, your sexual orientation, your background, ethnicity, all of that stuff, everybody equally can be affected by a disability at any time. And I know as you age, that even gets more likely that all of us are going to have some form of disability or challenge that we have to overcome. So for me, that was part of it. I think the other part of it for me was that with the disability stream compared to the other streams of diversity, it's one that technology can make a big impact on. And the things that we do to help or to make it easier for people with disabilities generally make it easier for everybody. So the technology fit for me was a really good fit.
And I will echo Jeff. I completely agree on both of those points. I think, as he mentioned, as population ages, I think the statistic is, 80 to 85% of everyone will become disabled, whether that's temporarily or permanently at some point in their lifetime. So, whether it's a short-term illness or disease or long-term or something that is becomes permanent. So I think, continuing to focus on areas that help all employees. But I think, too, the thing that I'm interested around, and Jeff touched on this, making Enterprise a better place to work. And if people can come in and not only is this a great place to work, but we're accommodating, we're flexible, they've got the right tools and things to excel and do their job, that just makes the engagement that much better. And so I think, from my point of view, that's why disability is so interesting. I think, too, you look at kind of the different strands of diversity, And I think, so many companies have done such a great job with women. There's obviously loads to do. But, people have done a lot with religion, I think a lot around ethnic minorities. But disability can be challenging because unless your disability is a visible disability, there's a lot of people both outside of work that are applying for jobs or inside of work that are fearful of disclosing their disability for fear that they may be discriminated against or may not be given the same opportunity as the person sitting next to them. So I think, really focusing on creating an environment where people feel really comfortable coming out with their disability and saying, hey, here's my situation, here's where I need help, and really working with their manager to come up with a great solution so that they can get on and provide great quality work. So, I think it's really interesting from that area as well.
Deborah, you're on mute.
I'm getting off mute right now. Thank you. Excellent answers. And as a global disability inclusion strategist myself, but also a mother of an adult child with Down syndrome, I think your answers are they were excellent answers, because what we find, and I write about a lot, is disability is just part of life. It's not a tragedy. It's a part of life. And I like what you said, Jeff, in that tying it into your technology background, because I'm a technologist as well. And then, as Donna was saying, it's all about, let's make our employees, let's be as supportive as possible, help them be as productive as possible. And the reality is, we all have abilities and disabilities. So I great answers. And I want to hear a little bit more, when you're ready, about the survey you're doing, because we want to help you get this information. I selfishly would like to see this kind of data be brought to the United States, because we need this consumer data, because often when the community of people with disabilities are talking to corporations, we're saying, you better not leave us out, you're leaving money on the table, blah, blah. But we can't really ground it. And I often talk to the community and say, okay, great. Well, so for example, now, because of Access Chat, that Enterprise is committed to including everyone, including people with disabilities. So if you are like me and you have a family member with a disability, or you're a person with a disability yourself, vote with your wallet. Don't do business with any other car company except, what was it, Donna? Alamo, National, Enterprise. And I'm serious. And yes, we're giving you kudos, but you deserve the kudos. And so join the conversations so that we can support you, but the community needs to support this as well. So back to you, Neil.
Okay.
Or Jeffrey, or if y'all want to comment on that, please do.
Well, actually, if you don't mind, I'll take a quick minute to talk about the Click Away Pound survey. Through the Business Disability Forum, we met a company called Freeney Williams. We've actually met a lot of great companies in this space, but Freeney Williams we now use to help us with designing more accessible products internally and externally. So as we develop our solutions, they're a big help. They're a great firm for doing that. They approached us and said they were interested in trying to find out exactly what you just said, Deborah. How much money do companies leave on the table or lose because they're not building accessibility into their technical design? I think there was a survey, the Walkaway Pound, that was done that was quite successful in showing how many businesses lose traffic and customers because their physical sites aren't accessible. But to our knowledge, nobody's really looked at the online accessibility. And with so much of the spend now being online and through technology, they really wanted to sort of see if we could quantify that, which would really give businesses a good launch point to say, we need to be focused on this. There's an actual tangible return you're going to get if you make things more accessible. So they approached us. We gladly volunteered to sponsor them and help out with it. And so they've created a survey. We'd love for anybody who has any type of disability in any country, frankly. You can take it even if you're not in the UK. But with any type of disability, to go in and take the survey, and it'll help us compile the data, get a sense of how much impact there is on people or on businesses when they do or don't make their sites accessible. and then we want to share that. We really, we want, obviously, selfishly, we want to use it within our own company because it's great information to have, but we really want to share it with the world because we want to see all companies start to make the right decisions.
Jeffrey, I have a quick question. But it could also be for people like my family that our daughter has a disability, but we vacation with her, we travel with her. So you would encourage people without disabilities globally to also take this so that we can see the true numbers, correct?
You got it, yes. And thank you for the clarification, Deborah. I appreciate it.
Well, just to make sure, yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that I know that Enterprise has already taken into account, because I went on your site and I was looking at some of the rental options, and I know that you can rent additional controls for cars, adaptive controls with your cars, and I know that you can, as a disabled customer, rent a vehicle on behalf of another driver as well, because you may not be able to drive yourself. So I know that that this stuff is obviously embedded in your thought process. So it's great to see that. I know Antonio's been queuing up for a while now, so I'm going to let him loose on you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Neil. Now, at the beginning of the conversation, you were explaining that the countries where you are present and that you have a global presence, and over the past year and a half, we had the chance of meeting and interviewing people from different parts of the world, where they're able to tell us their experience about what's our accessibility in Spain, in Canada, in the United States, in many different countries generally. So what I would like to know from you is, from your experience from working in all these, in all the countries, how you are able to learn from the best practices that some countries have been implemented and bringing that to the enterprise.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. I think growing up in the U.S. and living in the U.S. for a number of years, they do have an advantage with the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities legislation, the act, which requires all businesses to be completely accessible. And so they definitely have an advantage because it's just a flat-out requirement. We certainly don't have that here in the UK, and there's certainly a lot of reasons for that. The country is definitely considerably older. There's a lot of infrastructure challenges and so forth that I think most countries in the world would be more similar to the UK rather than to the US, because I think the US has gone completely to the other extreme, which is great. But I think, from a business standpoint, because we don't own all of our locations, and in fact we own a very small percentage of them, we can't go out and retrofit and do all sorts of things. We certainly work with all of our landlords to do things that we are able to fix and so forth to make our buildings accessible. But I think from our point of view, we've been able to focus on what we can do, and for our branch locations and so forth that aren't accessible, we do provide, as part of our great service, our great pickup service, we will go pick up a customer and bring them back to our location. We can deliver a car to someone who perhaps is not able to get into one of our locations because of an accessibility related issue, so we can deliver a car to their home or to their office and subsequently collect the car when the customer's finished with it. So I think from our point of view, it's really trying to get creative and think around things that you can do when it comes to customers. I think there's a lot of companies that have done some really neat things around disability. Barclays in particular has done a great job. I think Marks & Spencer has done a great job. So looking at and really sharing best practice with other companies who are in our place in a retail focused operation where you've got customers coming in and out of your branches. So really looking to mirror up with like-minded businesses and find out what people are doing. And I think, in this space, as in any other really diversity-related space, employers are really happy to share with one another and benchmark with one another and really work to get creative and share ideas and think about how, as a collective community, we can make this, disability so much better for everyone.
Thank you so much, Donna. Do you think that by leading by example, you are able to influence your suppliers?
Definitely so. As part of our supplier, when we go out to bid for suppliers, we do a questionnaire with them, which we take into consideration what their diversity practices are in all areas, which includes disability, of course, but really want to learn from them around different things that we're doing, or different things that they've learned from other customers that they've worked with. So definitely we can absolutely influence suppliers and really insist that certain things are done to a certain standard or to a different level, and I think that's been really important.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I need to mention the actual survey, which is the URL, which is www.clickawaypound.com, all one word. There's also a Twitter handle, which is @CapSurvey, and there is a hashtag as well, which is #CAPSurvey. So we'll be mentioning that again during Access Chat, because we want everyone to participate as much as possible. Yeah, so Jeff, going back to the technology issue, because I know as a fellow technologist, it's something that interests me. How have you found implementing assistive tech within your work environment? Because that's one of the things that challenges everyone in the BDF. We talk about it quite openly in our meetings, how we're towards the left of the maturity matrix rather than the right. So what are the things that you found most challenging and also most rewarding once you've managed to implement?
Well, I wish I could identify more rewards than challenges, but unfortunately, I see more challenges.
Sure.
Because, as you said, we're early on our journey. It's actually something that I quite like about the Business Disability Forum, is that we can talk with other very large companies that are in the same boat, and it's a place where we're not going in trying to shame each other or compete. We're really trying to all help each other get better, and everybody has a true interest in it. So when I look at ours, the challenges I see with assistive tech, one of the big ones for us is just our internal processes. We are a huge company, and so we're very careful, and we have a lot of, I guess, red tape around introducing new technology into our environment, because you've got to be very careful with security and scalability and resilience, and so you can't just start, introducing random new pieces of tech without it having some impact. So I think, one of the biggest challenges that we have is just identifying what are the right assistive technologies to introduce, to make available, and then how do you make them available in a way where people who need them can easily get approval and get access and get the piece of technology they need. And as I said, we're fairly early on that journey. Donna and I are kicking off a project right now to revamp the way that people handle personalizing their workplace. And it's reasonable adjustment, but in fact, Neil, it might have been you that coined this term for me, workplace personalization. I love that phrase, because when we put this in place, we want to make it easy for people to get whatever it is, whatever personalization they need in their workplace to do their job better. That could be some assistive technology like JAWS or any other type of, I'm trying to think of some good, some text and font tools, and there's just a variety of things that we could make available on a more standard, easy-to-get basis. But it could be things that somebody who wouldn't normally think of themselves as having any sort of disability, but there's just a way to make their workplace better and therefore make their work life better, and therefore they're going to be more productive at work. And so we're really keen on making that a seamless process.
No, that's excellent. And I stole the term from one of our former guests, a chap called Alistair Somerville from Acuity Design, and we had a chat with him about extreme personalization, because ultimately some of the stuff that we do in accessibility is at the extreme end. But equally, you're right, the vast majority of people that need things changing. They're only small personalizations, yet
Mm-hmm.
it can prove to be quite difficult in an enterprise environment. I was actually speaking at the AGM of the British Assistive Technology Association today, along with Paul Smythe from Barclays, and we were talking about some of the challenges in enterprise, but also setting out our stall and asking the guys that make the assistive technology to help us by making their licensing models easier, giving us things like installers that work in a corporate environment, because okay, so things like Dragon, naturally speaking, text help, they're done, and I don't know which. I'm getting technical. Sorry, people. I don't know which deployment mechanism you're using, whether it be SCCM or Active Directory or Radia or whatever. But you can deploy packages automatically down to the users, and that makes life a lot easier. Because if you've got lots of sites, which enterprise will have, then the last thing you want to do is send an engineer out with a box to the site to install the disk manually. It costs you money, and then someone's going to put the box in the cupboard, and when that computer breaks and you rebuild it, you find out that the cleaner's tidied up, and that box is no longer there. You've lost the license key, and someone can't work. So,
Mm-hmm.
so we're pleading with some of the smaller manufacturers, come along, and it would be great to get people at enterprise as well involved in the discussion process with vendors of AT to make them more enterprise friendly, and on the other side, where we're talking to enterprise software vendors like SAP through the Business Disability Forum, putting them in touch with people from assistive technology so that we can collectively make it easier to make this stuff work together, because the interoperability is quite a challenge, as you'll know.
Absolutely. In an environment like ours, we've got so many different endpoint technologies out there that we have to think about. It's not just plugging it into one particular scenario. You've got thin clients and tablets and PCs and laptops and all these growing endpoint devices. So that's a big part of it. And you also touched on, I think, the other side of that equation. When you buy software as a service from any number of large vendors, which is a growing, desirable thing to do, I think we have a responsibility, the large enterprises, to come together and make sure that the providers of that technology know how important these things are to us, because each one of us individually isn't going to have, as big as our voices are individually, it's going to be much better if we collectively are saying the same things.
I totally agree, and that's what we're doing through the BDF, and it's starting to pay off, and I know that we're also collecting the sort of the signatures from the top level management of these large companies now. So not just saying we've got their buy-in, we're actually getting them to write saying it's important to us, and that's going to make people sit up and take note.
Absolutely.
So just going a bit to the left field again, I've seen quite a lot about autonomous vehicles lately. Self-driving cars and Google and so on. So how long do you think it will be before enterprise introduces its first autonomous car?
Well, I'll tell you what, that is obviously something that we keep a very close eye on, because it will have a large impact on our business model.
Sure.
We think in some really cool ways, so we're very excited about it. But I want to preface what I'm about to say that this is Jeff King's opinion, not Enterprise's opinion.
Sure, of course. So
me as a technologist, it's interesting. If you would have asked me this question maybe as little as a couple years ago, I would have said we're well more than 10 years away from seeing any kind of real volume in autonomous driving vehicles on the roads. You'll see the test vehicles out there with Google and others, but I really thought we had quite a ways to go. In the last 2 years, I've gone to a lot of technology conferences where this comes up as a topic, and I heard somebody last year make a really interesting point, and that was that all of the components seem to be coming together at just the right time to expedite that, in a way that I think is going to surprise people. And I think, again, 2 years ago I felt differently, but now with artificial intelligence, with robotics, with the Internet of Things, with all the connectivity, that is all kind of, each piece is escalating much faster, and they're starting to come together, which caused them each to build off each other and feed off each other. And so the gentleman that was speaking, I can't even remember his name, made the point that these kinds of things take a long time to gain the initial traction, but as they start building on each other, it goes surprisingly quickly to get certain things across the finish line. And I think autonomous vehicles is going to be an example of that. So I don't know what year it's going to hit where they're common, and I don't know what year enterprise is going to have them. But I will say that I am now on the underside of 10 years for sure. I think we're 5 to 10, not 10 to 15.
Okay. And I think it's a very exciting technology for a lot of people with disabilities, particularly those with visual impairments, but also for the older population. So my father being a good example of that, you know, he has to reapply for his driving license every year. But if you think about it, you know, older people, they want their independence, and driving enables that. You take away a driving license, you're most likely to remove the social interaction that they're experiencing, and quite likely shorten their lifespan, because they're not going out and doing the things that they were doing before and having the kind of quality of life before. So actually, it's a really serious. It has really serious implications for, in a positive way, for people with disabilities.
No, and please don't forget that we're able to see some stats where the number of young people who are applying for driver license is reducing. So there's less people today taking that step. It used to be a sort of a step into how you were growing and you're becoming an adult. So that step is basically, you see the percentage going down in terms of number of teenagers that are going to apply for driver's license.
Sure.
That's really interesting, I think, because I know when I worked in California and growing up in California, everybody had a driving license, and when you were 16, you went to the Department of Motor Vehicles on your birthday to get your driving license because it was so important, and everyone I knew drove. It's just what you did. And then I moved to New York and in Manhattan, where cars are expensive, parking is expensive, and so forth. There's, and transportation, public transportation is so great. So few people actually drove. And of course, similar here in the UK, specifically in London, but in other larger metropolitan, city centers and so forth, where you don't need a driving license. So it is absolutely true that the percentage of people driving is decreasing.
I think the models of how people are getting transportation are changing. You look at, we do car rental, which we've done for a long time now, and short term and long term. But now we're doing a lot more car share, where the Enterprise Car Share brand is all about people who just need a vehicle for an hour here or an hour there. So whether it's inner city or whatever, I think that's a growing trend that people who are younger don't feel the need to own that asset. They just want to consume it as a service whenever they require it. So that that is going to be an interesting thing. We quite like that trend growing. And then you add autonomous vehicles into that, and now anybody can at some point look on their phone, say they need a car, it shows up at their front door, they get into it, they tell it where it wants to go, and they take them there, take them back, and so they're really all the barriers that anybody with a disability, for example, today has, almost completely fall away when you've got that environment.
Assuming a number of things. So I'm thinking that you need to do the app development accessibly, that you need to find the right kind of vehicles that enable people to get in and out easily and all of this kind of stuff. And yet Enterprise is in a great position to influence that market, because you have enormous purchasing power. You're buying fleet purchasing in a massive way. So companies are going to listen to you if you say this is a requirement. We need this. they're gonna pay attention. It's a bit. I know that even Ferrari are now designing their vehicles to be easier to get in and out of, because the people that are buying them are now in their 50s. They're not young people. So actually, even Ferrari have to take into account accessibility.
So I want to make a comment. So having that experience dealing with people with disabilities, do you see it as today we have people selling software as a service, renting cars as a service for people with disabilities? Is this the right way of putting the question?
I feel like that's a real business model out there, that you don't have to, especially if you don't need it, all day, every day, which most people really don't need their cars all day, every day. So when you can consume the need for a vehicle just at the point in time when you need it, and again, if it's got autonomous driving and a very easy, accessible way to book it and to interact with it, I think that just makes it even more likely that people are going to gravitate. I know that I would certainly gravitate that direction over driving myself around and owning my own vehicle and having to worry about it and park it and maintain it.
Okay. I've got one last question, and it's a less geeky one, and it's for Donna. And that is, how are enterprise encouraging people with disabilities to enter the business? I know we've talked about how you're aiming to retain them, but what are you doing to attract disabled talent to enterprise?
Well, most people do join us in our management training program. That's our biggest entry point into the business. Most people start there and then move into other areas of the business. So one thing from a disability standpoint, we have disabled employees who drive and disabled employees that as a result of their disability they don't drive. And having a driving license for the management training program is a requirement for the role. And when we started looking at this a few years ago, we started breaking it down and really looking at the driving aspect of the role, because part of the role involves going out and calling on customers, whether that's insurance companies, body shops, dealerships, and so forth, calling on them, doing service calls as well as sales calls. And to do that, you drive to those appointments. And we started breaking it down and thinking, okay, is being able to go out on a sales call, is that the essential job function, or is being able to drive to the sales call the essential job function? And ultimately, it's of course the former. It's being able to be on the sales call. You don't actually have to drive yourself there. So through programs like Access to Work and a number of other things, we've been able to hire a number of disabled employees who don't drive into our management training program, and that's been terrific because those employees are available. They're in the branch. They are able to help out with customer service in the branch, and then when they need to typically go out one day a week on their sales calls, they're able to do that through other programs. So I think really looking at it, and I would encourage other companies to look at, if they have specific job requirements for jobs, really kind of break that down and think, how essential is that piece of the job? And look at different ways and really focus on what people can do and not what they can't do, and really focus on their strengths. And so for the management training program, we've overcome it that way. And then with other positions, those are typically more office-based or even home-based. So those are actually quite simple because often it's just a technology solution or an equipment solution that we're able to accommodate fairly easily. So I think just really looking at things from a different point of view and being a little bit creative, we've been able to attract a good percentage of disabled people into the company, which is great for our business because our customers are certainly disabled and we want our employees to mirror the customers that we serve, and that means employees from all ages, gender, all walks of life, backgrounds, religion, and so forth, and disability, of course, is a big piece of that.
Okay, Deborah, you want to wrap up?
Yeah, and just, Donna, I did not realize that enterprise was such a diverse, that you really valued the diversity in your employees. I just did not realize that as one of your customers. And so you can bet that I will now be talking about it all over the place. So I'm really glad to know about it. And I was tweeting like a dork while you were doing this. So it's like I'm already saying, come on, everybody, we all as this community need to take this survey. And thank you so much to Enterprise for all you're doing for your employees with disabilities, for your customers with disabilities, and for all of us. We need this kind of data. So thank you for the efforts. And Neil, I will hand it back to you to roll it up. But we sure are grateful for both of your efforts, Jeffrey and Donna, and all of Enterprise.
Oh, our pleasure.
Thank you very much, guys. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to joining you on Twitter. Bye-bye.
Bye.